If you've been following the events of BlizzCon 2018, chances are you've seen the clip of Red Shirt Guy 2.0 asking this.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No, it's a fully fledged Diablo experience on mobile, which everybody will get to play, and hopefully which will bring new heroes to Sanctuary, as well as welcoming our community back into it, and something we're very excited about.
Now, my first stream following BlizzCon, Red Shirt Guy 2.0 actually popped in the chat, and we had the opportunity to sit down with him, have a conversation, and ask him some questions. Unfortunately, Twitch muted the first 5 minutes of our conversation where I just kind of asked him his background. But the TLDW was basically a longtime Blizzard fan across all of their games. And I think you guys will get that impression in the interview to come. Now, for the sake of the video, it's unedited. I'm just going to let it play out, and you guys can formulate your own opinions. But let's get into it.
Anything other than, I think, Diablo Mobile, it just, BlizzCon was not really the avenue for a property like that. And I just felt, it just seemed so ridiculous and completely out of touch to say it there. We all are PC gamers. Everyone at BlizzCon, you know, the majority, not everyone, but 90% or so are PC gamers. Most of those people are coming from WoW, but you know, the vast majority of their are the hardcore, diehard Blizzard fans. Sure. So they probably play more than one game. They probably own a PC and multiple Blizzard games. So, it was just the wrong place and the wrong time to do it. They really should have announced it with that forum post, right, 2 weeks ago, and said, hey, we have a mobile title coming. We don't have anything for the existing Diablo players because, the reality is that, there are great phone games, and I love phone games. I play a lot of them, Puzzles and Dragons. I played Clash of Clans for a million years, and I'm okay that they're even a ripoff sometimes. Sure. I'm an idiot. I'll play the ripoff ones and not even spend a lot of money, but it's just.
So you saw the game. You saw Warcraft 3 come up, and so D2 Anniversary's out of the window.
Yeah.
And so what were you thinking after that?
I was thinking Diablo Mobile confirmed.
Really? You just right out of
yeah, because it was the top of the leak. Okay. And as soon as I saw Warcraft 3, then we had the demo areas, the sizes of the coverings, and then I was like, the leak is probably true.
Right. Damn.
And it was.
And so you go out there, right?
Well, no. Before they announced it, though, I was like, okay, maybe it's something cool. Maybe it's like a match 3 game. Maybe it's like a base building game. Maybe it's something on mobile that actually works very well on the mobile platform.
Sure.
And it'll be unique and different in an interesting kind of way. Take on Diablo. So I'm like, as long as it's not Diablo 3 Lite, I probably it could be exciting, could be fun. Like, okay, let's try it out. And so when they showed the gameplay, and it looked like Diablo 3, low res.
Absolutely.
I just, my God, I just groaned.
So when you went up there, what was the question you actually asked? Who screened? Do you know who screened you? Do you know who that person was?
I'm not familiar with whoever it was that was screening in line.
Because I know Brandy was on my side. I just didn't know who was on your side.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. But no, I pretty convincingly gave a very fake question. It wasn't terribly fake. It was close to the truth. But I said, oh, yeah, I just really wanted to know, where did the inspiration come from for this game? And how long has this project been in the works? I said, well... So I'm standing in line, and I had two things. I have no idea what my fake question is going to be, and I have no idea what my real question is going to be. I just know that the screener talked to 2 people in front of me, 2 people up, and they pulled that guy out of line.
They pulled him out of line?
And I was like, oh, yeah, they pulled another guy out of line, and I was like, oh, no, I need to have something. I need to have something convincing to, get past that point. And,
did you see?
And I did.
Did you overhear at all, what that guy was going to ask?
No, I couldn't hear. I was so curious, dude.
Yeah. Damn.
It may have been something.
I didn't even know they pulled anybody out of line.
Yeah, that's part of the screen. Either you're like, oh, that's already going to be asked, or that's way too negative or critical or whatever.
Right.
They pulled me out of the StarCraft Q&A line, which was kind of a bummer.
Afterwards,
that was the next day.
After this next day, they pulled you out.
Yeah, that was after this.
Were you wearing a red shirt?
Which I get. Well, no, I was just gonna ask. I was gonna ask a real question, but she was like, "I can't trust you."
Yeah,
It's like that's
fair.
fair.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually really surprised they didn't pull me out because I don't have necessarily a history of like being real positive towards Diablo. So,
Yeah. Well,
but
it's you want to let through some. No, obviously not a question like mine, but you want to let through some a little tougher questions so that that
right.
gives you do want to talk to the fans and you want to answer people's questions and kind of allay their concerns if possible. So I didn't realize. Was your question? Is it coming to PC?
Yeah, that was me.
Ah, see, I didn't. When you said that, I immediately knew the answer. I'm
Right.
like, of course,
Of course.
they already
Right.
have it. They already have it on PC. It's
Right.
called Diablo 3.
Right.
It's it's like why even bother? I had a lot of other questions I really
Sure.
wanted to know.
Sure.
Why a Chinese developer? How much of this code was written in Irvine, California?
Right. And I knew it
that-
was an easy to answer question, but like, I kind of wanted to convey like, okay, obviously this is not what we wanted. I didn't really expect a boo, but I did expect like some kind of stirring.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I wasn't sure. I was standing at the mic and I was like, what am I going to ask? And I'm browsing the Diablo subreddit looking for like a good question to ask because everything I could think to say was just really mean.
Right.
And I'm like, I really don't want to be mean. I don't want to be offensive and you don't want to be long-winded. I don't want to ask like a 20-minute long.
Sure.
You needed to be concise. And I was like, what is the spirit of how I'm feeling?
Right.
And how do I convey that in 5 seconds or less?
You did not even break a smirk.
No, I was so mad, dude. I mean, you're talking about, I've been to 4 BlizzCons. I'm flying across the country. I'm off work. My parents are watching my kids. Like it's a huge, logistics thing. There's a lot of cost involved. And I absolutely diehard Blizzard fan for, I don't know, 25 years. I played Warcraft on DOS, and just see this thing. Like this was not the place for it.
Right.
It was the problem. This was the wrong place to do it.
So
I was
did
just
you
mad.
have the opportunity to play Immortal?
I did. I absolutely did.
Okay.
And, my review is that it feels like a very well-built game. It really does. And I expect nothing less. I'm sure it's going to be a very solid, polished, probably fun, game for the people who want to play it. It's just I guess anyone like me who is a majority PC gamer does not want to melt their battery on their cell phone when they're already sitting in front of this computer they built to play games. And so it's not something that's targeted at the audience of BlizzCon.
Right.
And that was really the big problem for me.
Yeah.
I played it and it felt mechanically good. Honestly, the meteor skill, like the targeting manually skills, felt a little awkward when you press the button.
Sure.
And then you're dragging your finger over the other skill buttons to retarget it. It just, some of it felt a little clunky, which is, it's mobile. I don't play these kinds of games on mobile. I play mobile games, like match 3 games, like a Candy Crush or a Puzzles and Dragons. Like those are the kind of games that work really well for mobile. And I don't know. I've played games like this one and they all kind of feel the same to me. And that was largely the issue. It's like this, I've played a bunch of games like this. It's just not my style. I got bored very quickly. I didn't even finish the demo.
Go ahead.
In a Diablo game, there's, I guess in a game where you have a character and you're going to an inventory screen and a menu screen or if you crafting screen, mobile games for me just tend to feel bad when you have a lot of screens to go through.
Sure.
Unlike in a PC game where, or even console, you can bring up your inventory and still see your character on the screen.
Right. So if you would have brought any IP to mobile from Blizzard, do you think that any of them really could have done it successfully?
Sure. I think any of their intellectual property could work well on mobile, but this is a discussion about genre.
Right.
And the Diablo play style, it's just not, in my opinion, I don't think it's the appropriate genre to launch your foray into a mobile exclusive title. I mean, there are a lot of ways, like a base building game for Warcraft would have probably been the number one way to get onto mobile exclusive. And that's something that it baffles me because no one's going to see a Warcraft base building game, if it's built very well on mobile and then demand that it's terrible and to demand they get rid of it. And Warcraft has also had success with base building, and base building games work very well on mobile, vis-a-vis Clash of Clans, so I think I just think they picked the wrong type of game to do this with, the wrong type of gameplay to start with.
Do you think it would have gone over any differently had they announced another form of Diablo content to go with it?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's really the way the way they did Fallout Shelter. And, it's like, here's this little side project. We got this thing in the works. If we're trying to get some more people playing Diablo, but for you guys, and then boom, a D4 logo. That's really the way everybody would be talking about, what's Diablo 4 going to be like? And anybody who might have been interested in the mobile game,
sure,
they could play it and they could talk about it, and it wouldn't. I think the backlash wouldn't have been so severe.
I think it might even increase sales because people might be looking at the mobile game for hints at what we should expect in Diablo 4, even like little Easter eggs or gameplay styles or whatever.
Yeah, I think Blizzard's history of sequels is dramatically different though than a lot of companies, because people clamoring for a Diablo sequel, but I think if you look at the way that Blizzard does sequels, look at Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, and then Warcraft Tides of Darkness, Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness, Beyond the Dark Portal, and then look at Warcraft 3, look at the kind of the art and the feature set and the UI, look at the distance between 1, 2, 2, 3, same way with StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. They released a sequel when, the entire game is just dramatically different and better in every way and can do so much more. But a Diablo 4 sequel, at this stage, a Diablo 4 compared to Diablo 3 is probably not going to be leaps and bounds different and better. It's probably going to be so similar that you're asking yourself, why isn't this just an expansion pack? Why didn't they just retool a lot of the in-game stuff, which is, they already have so much work put into Diablo 3. Could they just retool it and carry it forward rather than scrapping it and starting with someone new? And I've seen a lot of people on both sides of this saying, well, they've gone too far this way with D3. They need to start fresh. But me, I'm like, well, it's so resource intensive to start from scratch. Right. Maybe they could make some changes, remove greater rifts as the only in-game, add some boss fights at power breakpoints, like a GR70 character, a GR90 character, GR40 character. Here are the challenges you can do. Nerf the drop rates of everything and give you some chase items that take forever to acquire, like a game like Path of Exile or Diablo 2. I played for years and years. I never saw a Zod rune at all. I never saw Tyrael's might drop. I'm like, ever.
Right.
And that's thousands of hours of gameplay.
Have you seen a game called Lost Ark? Have you followed that at all?
What's the game? Lost what?
Lost Ark.
Lost Ark. I have not even heard of it.
Okay. So it's top-down isometric ARPG, just like Diablo, that they've kind of morphed into an MMO as well. So it's an MMO ARPG. And I think that's the big speculation behind what Diablo 4 is going to be, because you can't really take D3 and really make it a true MMO.
Well, sure. The biggest difference, though, between my enjoyment of World of Warcraft and my enjoyment of Diablo is that in Diablo, I feel like I can get online and accomplish everything the game has to offer without having to rely on other people to do it.
Yeah.
And as you trend your games towards a more connected and, multiplayer only content and stuff, you start kind of isolating people who maybe don't always want to be in a group.
Right.
And don't want to always have to rely on someone else's mechanical skill to carry them through the most difficult content. And, that's something like StarCraft 2, which I love. I hit Masters League a bunch of times during Wings of Liberty for 1v1s, but in 2v2s, I just could, it's like, maybe you can't find a person that you jive with or that you want to always play with. Or sometimes I play at weird hours. So friends I make in North America are not going to be up at 2 a.m, and so I think I'm fine with those elements. I just hope it doesn't become this thing like WoW where I log in and I'm like, okay, I have to find someone for the island missions. I have to find someone for Mythic Plus dungeons. I have to find a bunch of people for a raid. I would hate it if Diablo became that way. This is my only huge concern about the, MMO elements.
Right. Yeah. I hear you, man.
I will yield. I was a little douchey. I'll give you that. That's fair. Totally was. I know I'm kind of an asshole sometimes.
I mean, I
just
get
thought-
it because I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, a lot of people that would hear me some of the stuff I'd say, like, well, what a fucking asshole. So I mean, I get it.
No, I mean, I'm like, what is the least asshole thing that I could say, but really express kind of the feeling that we have from this announcement?
Sure. For sure. And I think, yeah, I think you definitely accomplished that.
I would love to see things like, if you look at the Ubers, so if you look at something from, let's say, Diablo 2, like Uber Diablo, or if you look at, the Uber fight and Uber Tristram or whatever, and even a step further, if you go non-official, if you look at some of the in-game content from Median XL, some of these, there's a lot of overlap with Path of Exile encounters where this mechanically high skill cap at the top end of the game, you need to be able to dodge Shaper's Warp within, less than a second, and you get one-shotted. You need to be able to dodge the beam, or you're probably going to die in less than a second.
Right.
And some of these things, those are great ways to build a breakpoint of power level test for your character so that you actually have an objective when you get to GR90. And in Diablo, if you do a GR90 or you do a GR100, you as the player, you do not feel any different or more successful when you do the GR100 because it's kind of exactly the same as the 90 was, and so it's one of those things where if you have some of these mechanically high skill cap encounters that most of your players cannot accomplish, I think that's where the hardcore, super grindy players are very satisfied.
Sure.
But you limit the scope of your audience. If you look at Naxxramas in Vanilla WoW, they said that 1% of the player base ever even walked into Naxxramas.
Damn.
So in Vanilla, and that's why they re-released that. So I agree. There's got to be a balance, though, where you want people to be able to try everything, but you don't necessarily want a game where everyone who plays it can do everything. And that's really the core issue with Diablo 3 is that anybody who gets a 6-piece set bonus of any kind can probably do like T10 and can do all the Uber fights. And there's nothing past that initial power jump of 10,000% to really test all of the marginal improvements you've made.
I don't know.
I mean, in addition to that, well, okay, but it did greater rifts,
sure,
right? And then what? I did 91, I did 92, they don't feel any different. Whereas,
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, I feel like the power creep is definitely there. You feel it as you continue.
Yeah, but okay, so if you accomplish a greater rift 80, which I did this season, I got to like 85 or something. When I beat a greater of 70 to unlock primals, and then when I actually got on the leaderboards at some point, I did like a GR 85. I didn't, I felt my character was more powerful, but I didn't have a static baseline against which to gauge that power. Like if you go do the Bale fight in Diablo 2 on Hell mode, if it takes you a minute to kill Bale, then that's your power level. And if you can't even get past Lister half the time, that's your power level. But if you come back and you're like, I've made all these improvements, I got so much more powerful, I got the perfect version of this item, I made a rune word, then you go back and you're like, wow, I can kill Bale in like 10 seconds. There is a static benchmark against which to test your additional character power.
I think that's the same thing in Diablo 3, though. So you can hit fresh 70, you get, your set bonus going, your 6-piece. Yeah, maybe you can do T10, maybe you can do T13. But when you start to min-max your items and get augments, like, that's really when you see the crazy power creep. Like, like you're saying, like, okay, 85 this season. Like, I speed 90s, in like 2.5 minutes, like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, you do feel it, but the thing that makes you kind of one of the reasons that it's very mechanically satisfying, you want to out level your content and you want to feel like your character has become super powerful and relative to what the game can challenge and throw at you. I want to be able to beat the hardest boss that the game has to offer in the fastest amount of possible time. And then I gauge my character powers having gotten X amount of more powerful. But when you have an unlimited power level, because you could get to Paragon 8,000, and you could get level 100 Caldesons on every single item, and then your goal is not how fast can I kill Bale, how fast can I kill Bale, how efficient can I become at farming, Pendleskin. Like then your benchmark becomes, oh, I can do 100, can I do 101, can I do 102? It doesn't, it doesn't, in my perspective, it doesn't
Sure.
scratch the same itch, because everything is happening at a 5% interval, whereas you'd like to see a power jump, change something at a 50%. And, I went 3 days played and I gradually grew, but then I got this amazing item and boom, I took a 50% character power
Sure.
jump all of a sudden, which is
Right.
what happens in Path of Exile and even in Diablo 2, but it does not happen in Diablo 3 because everything happens in 1% increments.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, my Caldesons from, 50 to now I'm doing 75s on my gear. I just got 5% better.
But the flip side of that coin is like, yeah, I see what you're saying with like the slow power creep, and you don't really feel that. But like at the same time, like you play PoE and like, okay, maybe now I can do like lab runs faster because I have the things that I need, and that's kind of like your gauge of how powerful you become. Whereas like, let's put a number on it. Let's put you on the leaderboard. Like to me, that's like infinitely better than like, okay, now look at guys, I can do this boss this much faster, and like it doesn't really matter because it's like what do you have to show for it? Like nothing, because it's like there's no leaderboard for killing a boss. Or
there actually is. There's a leaderboard for the lab runs, and it actually gives an award every day, every 24 hours. The fastest lab run for that day gets a special gem that you can only get from being the fastest labber that day. And the Delve League introduced a leaderboard for the Delve, who can do the deepest delve. So I think that there is a balance to be found between the two. And I think that probably, Path of Exile is maybe a little bit closer to what I would say in terms of an in-game grind, what I think would be very mechanically satisfying. Whereas Diablo, yes, there are the leaderboards, and it was fun when I got on the leaderboards for Barbs this season. It was exciting, but that was kind of the only thing. And there are plenty of seasons in Path of Exile where I'm like, I literally did not get powerful enough with my character to clear all of the content. And I played it for 10 days.
Damn.
Played time. And with Diablo, there hasn't been a season that I can recall where I didn't finish every single conquest and greater rift, the season journey. I didn't finish the entire season journey within a week, and then I'm like, now what?
Sure. I get that. So, do you see like a perfect balance? Like, well, if it was up to you,
I think a perfect balance is ultimately the goal, but some real in-game content where players can test themselves against the game, like the Shaper encounter. And if anybody is not familiar with Path of Exile, go watch a couple of videos of the Shaper fight, and then watch a video of the Uber Shaper fight. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where if you don't respond immediately to these skill telegraphs, and if you don't move and position yourself correctly throughout the 5 minutes of the fight, you're gonna die. You're gonna get one-shotted, and it requires you mastering that encounter, practicing it to perfection over and over and over again, and you as a player getting better and better and better. If you look at Diablo, look at Diablo at release, Diablo Inferno mode.
Yeah.
Look at some videos of people trying to clear Asmodan and Belial, and even trying to beat the game at all on Inferno mode. You have to be very aware of what abilities the boss has, where they're going to land, how to position your character correctly, because the game is so incredibly challenging that if you're not in the correct spot, those things are going to kill you, and you're not going to clear the encounter.
But doesn't that kind of reach a point where, like, so World of Warcraft, like a dungeon, like once you've mastered the mechanics, doesn't that become kind of inherently boring as well?
It could, but I mean, if you look at it, there's mastery and efficiency, right? So mastering the mechanics and then becoming efficient with your mastery of the mechanics are kind of the two driving forces there. The problem with the Greater Rift system is that ultimately, if I push and I'm like, I'm going to be the best I can, get as high as I can get on the leaderboards, it gets so boring because the mobs don't die. Like, everything takes forever to kill, and you got to group it up in your just sitting on the same screen with the same big clump of mobs, and you're just like waiting for everything to die. And that's not as satisfying a gameplay as I practiced and I played and I got good and I got efficient and I got the best items and I upgraded my power. And now the same thing that was taking me 10 minutes because I couldn't kill anything or I kept dying or whatever. Now I can do that in 3 minutes. I can do it in 2 minutes. And running content that is extremely difficult, but that you have mastered over and over and over again very efficiently is a lot more satisfying gameplay than when you say, I'm going to go as high as I possibly can. And now everything I do takes like 15 minutes. Everything. Every time you push, the rift is going to take like 14 minutes. And not only that, you have to like find a good layout and fish for the right map. Like you spend more time, finding the correct layout. Whereas on the flip side, if it's extremely challenging, but your character got so powerful and you got so good at it, you're not necessarily spending as much time trying to manipulate the layout as you are trying to just get through it as fast as possible because your character is really boss now.
Right on. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's.
And I don't know if anybody has that view other than me. Well, I think there's absolutely no reason that both types of players can't be happy in the same game.
Yeah.
Put some of these incredibly difficult, challenging encounters that only like 5% of people will ever clear on the hardest mode. Put those in Diablo.
What would you think about? So, say you're at the end of your Greater Rift and you're facing the Shaper.
That would be insane. That would be an absolutely epic way to do it. That would be like so cool. The bosses and the packs, the rares and the champion packs, they all have some great affixes that are mechanically demanding, that are really good. But, like they did with Vanilla, they had a bunch of unavoidable stuff. And the same thing with, you got your Desecrator, your Molten, whatever. Like a lot of things are still kind of unavoidable. So if everything is 100% avoidable, then I think you get into a scenario where really pushing the player to see how high they can get, and not spawning effects on you that just one-shot you.
Right.
And then that's the thing that limits your progression.
Right. And that's what I kind of meant. When I asked my question, the first thing I said is like, I see a lot of mechanics here that we've been begging for in D3. And then what I meant by that was like, the telegraphs on the ground that tell you like, hey, get the fuck out, stuff like that. And like, I do like the ability. Like, I thought it was really cool. I haven't really given my opinion on Immortal to the stream yet, but I actually really like, so you bring up Meteor and you have your radius at which you can cast Meteor. And then within that, you have a smaller circle that says, okay, this is exactly where you have to aim it. Something like that in Diablo 3. So you got to put your build together. You got to put your skills together. You got to get your set right and your stats right. But then imagine on top of that, you had to like aim your skills and be like fluent and adequate at that as well. Plus, on top of all that, you're dodging, telegraphs and game mechanics. Like that would be a dream to me in Diablo 3.
Oh yeah. I think, at an action RPG, I think you should telegraph everything. And in a general sense, give people maybe 3 seconds to respond.
Sure.
And then at the highest level, when you get to the just uber in-game, give people less than a second to respond.
Sure.
I don't feel very satisfied if I kill, one of the greater rift bosses, the rat boss or the, whichever boss, the fire boss, any of them. I don't feel that great because they're not a static challenge point where I'm like, is my character now powerful enough to take on this boss? Well, I don't know, because that boss is just, the difficulty of that boss is always relative to the number of the greater rift I'm in. And there's never a way for me to say, I finally got so good I can kill that boss in Diablo 3. And that's really the problem.
What if as you climb greater rifts, that telegraph time goes down?
Absolutely. Increasing the numbers is the single stupidest way to increase the amount of gameplay cycle. Like just saying, well, everything at tier 1 has 1 million hit points and everything at tier 100 has 10 trillion hit points. It's such a boring way to approach design, and you really narrow the space because now I have to stack 1 million health or bajillions of damage, and that's it. And it's just a numbers game. It's boring. But if you're like, hey, in a Greater Rift 1, you have 4 seconds to get out of a Molten. and a Greater Rift 100, you have 0.3 seconds to get out of a molten. But the hit points of the mobs, don't have to go to the moon to infinity like they do already.
Right.
And put a cap on the level of the Greater Rift. Don't have it be, it doesn't have to go to infinity.
Well, then what would be like once you've mastered all of that? What would you do then?
Some static encounters that are tuned for that level of character power. You basically want an efficiently maximized min-max character who is built really, really well, who has all the right items and all the right slots and all the right stat choices, etc. That character should be able to clear everything the game has to offer, right? But maybe not even, 20% below that amount of power. There are things you just can't do. There should be a finite level of power that the player can hit. And, you need to put thousands and thousands of hours into that character to get to that level. But it should be kind of finite. Having the Paragon system, where if you just time sync, dump thousands of hours into the game, you will arbitrarily amass character power without any effort on your part to be efficient or build correctly or have a really optimized setup. I think that kind of kills your investment in your own, it's like, because when I hit a new season, I'm like, well, just power level me to Paragon 400,
But what would you suggest for say, us 1% of players that really min-max absolutely everything and could play the game at the highest level? I would hate to see it become like WoW, where eventually you just run out of what you can do on that character's just juiced out of his mind, and then you create an alt. I would hate there needs to be no cap, which I think is actually great about Paragon, is that you can just continually increase the character's power.
I think having a character power cap incentivizes you reaching goals as a player. Your only goal in Diablo 3, if you're a high-end player, is now to just do the highest level Greater Rift. Whereas in a game like Diablo 2, maybe you want to specifically get good at Pendleskin runs. Maybe you want to build a character that can do Chaos Sanctuary over and over and over again. Maybe you want to build a character who can clear, the Uber Tristram encounter. Then you have goals for your character, and so maybe my Uber Tristram super end game boss clear character is not, the same one that I want to farm Bale with, and so you could roll an alt. I mean, what we have currently is that I finished the season and I do the challenges, and it's been less than a week of playing, and now I don't have any way to test that other than to just put in 1,000 hours and try and beat streamers and people who are in groups of 4 at getting on the leaderboards. Now I'm like, okay, I'm going to push the highest Greater Rift I can, but this guy's been sitting in a group of 4 since the season started, playing 8 hours, 12 hours a day. I will never compete with him. I will give me something where the game can challenge me, and I can hit my own personal objectives in my playtime with the game, rather than having to push an impossible task, which is to compete with people who have groups that are just boosting them to Paragon 2000.
Do you feel that you should have the opportunity to compete against those people?
Oh, absolutely. But I can't. I just can't. I just don't have that quantity of time.
But isn't that life though? Someone works harder than you. Absolutely.
And in this case, the question is, what is the difference between works harder and throws more time in?
Sure.
Because in Path of Exile, you could put in a huge chunk of time into the game, into maxing your character, and with let's say 10 days played in a 90-day period, there's not a ton of extra power that this person who's put in 10 times the amount, somebody who put in 10 times the amount of time into their character is not going to be just automatically so incredibly Paragon 5000 versus your Paragon 1000 or whatever.
Sure.
They're not going to just get a flat bonus across their character. Your luck can have a factor, how quickly you got a 6 link, how efficient you are with that time. You can get the max level gems in your gear. You could get some double corrupt implicits. You could do a lot of things where, even though they put in literally 10 times the amount of time into their character, they didn't necessarily automatically get to be more efficient or effective than your character. If you built your character better and you found the best items in that time, you can still compete with that.
Right on. Cool.
I don't know. I just feel like, how am I going to push a greater rift against a guy who's Paragon, 4,000 or something?
Sure.
Like there's no way.
Right.
Even if I have,
and I don't necessarily
player.
think there's anything wrong with that. It's just like obviously botting is a huge issue, and that ultimately becomes the issue. Is that you can't compete with the bots. But I don't necessarily feel like I play at a very high level, and at the end of the season, can I compete with those guys that are like 3K, 4K Paragon? As long as they earned it and they actually put in the time to do that, like I don't really feel bad losing to those guys because they, in my opinion, earned it.
I completely agree. I don't feel bad, but I did the way that the Paragon system the way that Diablo 3 just gives you the player a 1% power increment every 20 minutes you play. It just doesn't feel good. I would rather go a few hours without really finding anything or getting any character power, and then I find something that gives me a 25% boost. That's the entire gaming theory behind pulling the lever on a slot machine. If you say here's $100, play the slot machine, it's $1 a pull, and every time you pull you win $1.01. Like technically you are making money, but man, is that going to get old quick.
Sure.
But if you say here's $100, and by the way, you can run around and earn more dollars if you run out. Pull this lever, it's $1, and maybe you get nothing like 5 or 6 in a row, but then all of a sudden you get $5. You're like, hey, that feels good. But if you go 50 to 100 pulls and then you get nothing, it's but if you do, let's say 50 more, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just won $300.
Sure.
And that's the difference between the character power of a Path of Exile character who has a 5 link going to a 6 link. All of a sudden you've been playing hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden you get a 50% power level increase to your whole character. That feeling only happens once in Diablo, and that's when you complete your first set. And there's no other feeling like completing your first set in Diablo 3.
Really?
That's it.
Have you fully augmented a character and min-maxed? I feel like that's kind of like the end game that you're talking about.
No, definitely not. The most I've ever done is like 4 or 5 Caldesons. It's so boring. The gym system is so incredibly boring and redundant. It's like, it just, it's in my opinion.
Sure.
Granted, it doesn't really feel good to get there.
I get that.
I mean, there's a certain kind of grind. I guess the way to build a grind for a player, there's like the Korean MMO grind, which is maybe too much,
right.
And then there is, like the Diablo 3 grind, which is too easy at first and then mind-numbing at the end. And I think there's probably a balance somewhere in there where you can constantly give the player a little bit more power and a little bit more reason to play, but then also have breakpoint levels where you just go off the rails because, you got way more powerful all of a sudden with a great item find.
Right. Yeah. Well, right on, man. I appreciate you taking the time to hop on and chat, dude. It's baller.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just we're just chilling. I think we're gonna go have dinner, and it was a good con.
Are you still out there?
It was a lot of fun. Oh yeah, we're in LA.
Oh, nice.
We thought we might go to San Diego and check out the zoo and walk on the beach or something.
La Jolla.
But yeah, it was I watched your stream for a little bit, and I saw some of your videos, and
right on, man.
It's good stuff. I appreciate your candor, and thanks for giving me the time to just come and chat.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Appreciate it. Take it easy, man.
All right. Yeah, you too.
Later.